guys, welcome to a new video here in JS Education. My name is Carlos Santana and this is the video number 24 for the course developing a headless CMS with TypeScript and GraphQL. So let's start. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is, as always, update ncu-u. I think for me, I already have the latest versions, so just make sure you are installing the latest versions that give you the ncu-u command. Okay, the first change we need to do is on backend source, GraphQL resolvers, model, and on the get model query, we need to return, or we need to add on the fields another include this new model value and return all the values related to that field. And then we need to create a new resolver called value.ts, which is going to be this one. Basically, we are going to create a mutation create values, which is going to receive an array of values and is going to bool create all of them. So we need to do that, and also going to types field, and you need to include values after model ID on the type field. And then you need to create a new type called value.graphql. Like this one. So our values are going to have an ID, an entry, value, and field ID. And the mutation we have is create values, which is going to receive an array of create or update value input, which is going to include the entry, the value, and the field ID. And it's going to return an array of values. Okay, so now you need to go to interfaces, index, and we need to include the value or import the value, and then after field you need to add those new interfaces, and for the models we need to add value after user. And then on types you need to create the value type like this. It's going to have an entry and value. This entry should be string, it's not a number. Okay, and then you need to go to models, fields, and because we need to do a new relationship, we need the models interface. And in here at the bottom, you need to do field.associate, and specifying that field has many values and they are going to be connected using field ID, and you will retrieve it as values, and they are connected on delete cascade. Okay, now the model for value, you need to create that here, value TS. And this one is going to include or have an ID, an entry, which is also an UUID, and a value, which is text because we can save short values or large values. So, I mean, we are going to use text for that. And then on the index of models, you need to import the value model like this. Okay, so now let's go to the front end. So in the front end, you need to go to source, dashboard components, content index, and we need to remove this fake data. Like that. And then we need to import a new function from our fogg-utils. which is going to be get values for table. And then we are going to get the data like this. Get values for table with pass or fields. The second parameter is to exclude some fields, so we don't want to exclude any values for specific fields. The third parameter is the order by, which is going to be the field that you want to order. In this case, I want to order by created at. And the direction is going to be descendant. So you can put here, by default it's ascendant, so that's why we want to invert the order. And then we are going to get the body, the head, the rows, and the total. So the same variables we had with the fake data, we are going to get here. And we pass the table with the same data. Okay, so now you need to go to GraphQL, models, get model. And after is primary key, you are going to include the values, getting the ID, the entry, and the value. So that's it. Let's test our application really quick. I'm going to remove the database or like clean up so we can start fresh. Oops. Okay. Okay, so now you need to go to your local dashboard. Okay, and then I'm going to connect it. Carlos.santana@dev.education. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, let's create a new application. Let's create now a new model. And just for demo purpose, I'm going to add just one field. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard to include values from the playground. But let's suppose now we have a title here. Okay, so the real thing is on the backend right now or on the playground. So what we need to do here is basically get our models, right? So we get the model pose and then our fields. So here is giving us all the fields: title, status, updated at, created at, and ID. These four are system fields and this one is a custom field. So let's start with the ID. So we copy the ID of the ID field. We go to create values mutation. So in here we're going to say, okay, our entry has to be an UUID, but the thing is that each entry needs to have the same entry ID, otherwise it's going to be a different entry. And then we can say, okay, for the field ID, and then you put the ID of that field here, which is an ID, I'm going to have this value. And then ID, and then we can go for the title. And then on the title, which is gonna be this field ID, on this entry, I have blog post 1. And then on the status, this field ID, I'm going to say this is a draft content. And then for updated at, I'm going to put this date. Then finally for created at, I'm going to have this other date. So if we create this data, it's going to create it correctly, like the values. But now let's suppose we want to add another one. So we need to change the entry ID. So this is going to be changed instead of 1 for 2. And all of them needs to be the same in order to create like a different entry. The ID also needs to change. We can change this for the, and then blog post 2. The field IDs are gonna be exactly the same, but the values are going to change. Published. The dates are going to keep the same date for now. So I create a new one. So the ID is different. The entry ID is different. So that's like a second row, for example. So now if we go to our dashboard and we go to content editing, we are going to see here our data. Blog post 1 as draft and blog post 2 as draft. So what do you think? So that's it for this video. I don't want to make it any longer. So remember that if you like our videos, please help me sharing those, and also subscribe to this new channel. And if you have any question on this project, feel free to join our Slack community. The link is in the description. So thank you so much for your time, and see you in the next video. Bye.